Camera, past this tree, but nailed this one.
Yeah, you almost reached the Shadlands with that one. Be careful.
So even on a miss, it still hits. Should be a quote.
You can do it. You can do it. Did he do it? Oh, he did. It went through.
That wasn't as climactic as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a bit cooler.
Explosive.
Let's get to our final thoughts. I don't think there's too much left to cover with the throwing cross. So let's get to Tyrant's initial thought score, or TITS for short. In terms of this one, I actually think that it's not bad. And the reason why is because not only is it a throwing weapon, I think we've demonstrated pretty reasonably that it is actually not a bad throwing weapon at all. But it's also still a functional item. First off, if this is for vampire hunting, right? It is still a cross. The power of Christ compels you, Tony. Got it.
Tony, vampire confirmed.
So it still is a functional cross. On top of that, I do think that it has some melee capabilities. For example,
yeah, the lack of a pommel is going to be a problem, I was thinking now. Because when you hit, the lack of a pommel is going to be, it's not going to be a great knife. It's going to be an improvised knife.
If I was to come down like this, I don't think you're going to be generating too much force in that
like
sort
he's
of
going
way.
like that.
However, using these parts of the cross as a guard, I should say, you can generate some force and use it like a little shiv.
That's going to hurt though.
You don't have too much length, but it's still perfectly reasonable to do that, and that doesn't feel too terrible at the end of the day.
I wonder how it feels on his wrist.
So let's start off with one of the categories. First off, comfort. It's a bit nebulous because what's the comfort I'm assessing here? It's
what's the expectation?
Weapon, you hold it and you throw it. For that, it's perfectly comfortable. 9 out of 10, no worries. I mean, it's a little thin. It could be a little bit more contoured, things like that.
Yeah, as I say, the one in the game would have been thicker.
But there's not really much to grade here. In terms of using it as a melee weapon, I mean, it's, again, you would want a little bit more thickness, a little bit more bulk, but that might screw with the aerodynamics. So for comfort, let's go 9. I got no problems with it at all. In terms of its wieldability, 10 out of 10.
Really?
There's nothing wrong with the wieldability. This is what I like about it. It is a very low user error weapon, meaning any random person could pick this up and just throw it.
Yeah.
So let me grab that. Let me grab that back.
It'd be nice to test it with one of those dummies that kind of simulate the human body, including epithelial human tissue, bones, organs, skin density, and see how much penetration you get with those throws. Because against the wood, the penetration wasn't significant. It was a little. But then again, that's wood. So unless you are fighting a Trent, how the heck are they pronounced? Unless you're fighting those, it would be interesting to see, because if the penetration is significant, then I mean, the Romans would have loved it.
Any person could just pick it up and throw it, and it will probably work.
Thank you so much, Johnny00. Appreciate that.
Next up is the design. I mean, 9 out of 10. You have a little bit extra length for the throw when it comes to this. As a throwing weapon, I actually don't mind the design at all, and the sticking in rate, the hit rate was pretty good.
It actually was impressive.
Having this little bit of extra length for a handle seems to actually really help. Having 3 almost equal, we'll call them that, points seems to really help as well. So the design is actually pretty good. The wieldability is pretty good. Let's get into the last and final category, and that is effectiveness.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a main weapon. Obviously, I shouldn't have to say that, but I'm gonna say it anyway, just in case. So this isn't like what you would carry around primarily.
I think I remember the one in the game can extend, so it kind of is his main weapon, but it doubles down because he has a chain and disconnects and becomes a little bit of a flail, if I remember correctly, right? I haven't seen the game in a while though, so I could be completely off.
It was pretty good, man. For effectiveness, as a throwing weapon, 10 out of 10. I feel like I'm having an existential crisis here.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen the scores yet. I don't know what the score is yet. but I've got a feeling that this may be genuinely one of the highest things I've ever rated. And it's a fucking throwing weapon. But it's really good at it. Not only is it really good at it, it's pretty good at also doing other things.
Yeah, it's quite versatile.
Turns out this is a great design.
I don't think, though, to disagree with you a little bit, I think it's good at a few things, but it doesn't excel. Because it's a good throwing weapon, but a bow and arrow would be better, a crossbow would be better, in my opinion. Even a throwing knife, I think, would be better. But it is surprisingly good. But maybe it's because you are pretty good at throwing it. You're basically making it, it's like when you give someone who is really good at playing the violin and you give them a violin that is kind of mediocre, but it still sounds amazing. You know what I'm trying to convey? And as a hand-to-hand weapon, well, a rondella would work better than that. So I think it's impressive in the sense that it's not a bad weapon as we were probably expecting due to the fantasy design. Pretty good. But I don't know if I would make it like super high when you compare it with other weapons that are either specialized in their fields or, you know, kind of. But it's pretty good though.
That gives us a final score. I don't want to say it out loud. It gives us a final 38. That gives us a final score of 38 out of 40 for a throwing weapon. Almost a perfect score. What the fuck? I am unhappy with this. I am unhappy with this result. But I think it's a fair one. So I think
here is the very cool. All right, so very nice. I loved the video. Let's give him a like. I'm already subscribed. If you aren't, you totally should, because Screen Tested is awesome.